Hey guys, Super Rocker here.
I'm Luke Ambrose.
And welcome guys to episode 3 of IndieCast, where today we're going to be covering Secret of the Mimic. We're going to be giving our initial thoughts of the game, what we like, what we didn't like, and much more. So, Ambrose, how do you feel about Secret of the Mimic? What are your initial thoughts on the game?
My initial thoughts, I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like, man, so far it's not the best, but it's not the worst. But when we first walk in and see that showtime, I was like, oh, I'm in for something fun. This is gonna be fun. Yes. But overall, it was a good experience, I'd say. I know a lot of people were hating on it and
Compared
stuff.
to Poppy Playtime, man. I was like, what do you mean it's like Poppy Playtime?
I know. I'm not gonna lie, I can see this similarity, but like, I think they're pretty different.
Yeah, I would say they're definitely like, yeah, you got like the cardboard cutouts, right? Yeah, you got like sort of like how the chase sequence is built up, where you got to do certain actions and other things to keep moving forward. Keep in mind, you know, FNAF is trying to, kind of take inspiration, trying to, evolve, right? Because back then, FNAF is just like, sitting in an office, still laughing, surviving from 12 to 6 a.m., just kind of conserving power indoors and everything, right? But it's like nowadays, in the current modern FNAF timeline, it's like you just can't stick with that forever. I think it's also kind of cool how they're taking inspiration from some other games as well, and also trying to make something unique, within, the game that they're presenting to us as well. So I don't kind of see it as a bad thing that's being similar. If anything, it's kind of like, a good thing in a way. But it does, kind of present, some feedback and criticisms, from the fan base to Steel Studios. This way, they kind of know how to improve upon, future FNAF games when they do present them to us.
Exactly. They took huge inspiration, especially for a story-driven game. They took inspiration from other story-driven games like Indigo Park, Poppy Playtime, Bendy, I'd say, too, as well. They all have similarities because in my opinion, I don't think there's any other way to do a story-driven game like how they want to do, and I think they did a pretty good representing the past, and it's way different than other FNAF games, too.
Oh, 100%.
Better than Security Breach. For you, even though it was shorter than Security Breach, I'd say it's better than Security Breach, 100%.
Yeah, what I like about Security Breach is it was such a huge open, aspect, right, of the world around us, right? Kind of exploring these different areas and the characters that we were introduced to, right? The Glamour Electrons and Vanessa. I just like the mystery and the other things that, that just didn't make sense, and we had to put the pieces of the puzzle together for, try to make it all sense such, though. When we first got, the teaser trailer, I was, so, stoked, and it started, oh my god, yo, that's, the Mimic and Jackie right there. And then we were kind of introducing, these other, tidbits, like posters and some, information about the game. And then when we finally got the official trailer for Secret of Mimic, I was just in overall static and everything. And we just, and that same hype still carried over when I, played the game as well, too. Again, as you said before, with the comparison, Secret of Mimic being, Poppy Playtime stuff. Again, it's not a bad thing, but anything like that, there's some good things that come out of it. Steel Studios can learn a lot from what they did from making this game. Again, it's a great game. And again, some games have their ups and downs, but those ups and downs will ultimately help shape the future games into, what they should be and what people want to see. I overall, my initial thoughts on the game is, I'm just stoked and hyped and excited, and, that still carried over. And absolutely love Secret of Mimic. The chase sequences were great, the jump scares were on point, the story is great, everything was moving at a pretty good pace overall. And as you said, even though it was shorter than Security Breach, I think that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, as long as the story was told how it was supposed to be told and kind of gives us a few ideas as what could happen. Secret of Mimic did, check all those off and accomplish that. I think overall this game did it right. I think Secret of Mimic is a beautiful, fantastic game, and I can't wait to see what else Steel Studios is gonna be cooking up for the next, future FNAF game. What did you like about Secret of Mimic? What did you like about it?
What I liked about it was the roaming part. Now that's a thing a lot of people dislike, but I liked the roaming. I liked the puzzles, because the puzzles weren't Poppy Playtime level hard, or wasn't too easy. I would say it was just right, especially using it in the Big Top section when you had to do the puzzle and before Big Top got in the room, and then reset and do it again on repeat. I really liked that. Also, Tiger Rock's puzzle too. It was not really a puzzle, but it felt like one, because if you stayed in a circle for too long, then he'll jump scare you. Overall, I think the puzzles they did really great. Oh, and we also can't forget Dolly's section. Dolly was a big part of this game too.
Her section, her area was very cool. How she was literally acting as a train, in the electricity and getting the door open. I like that area a lot. Also like the whole part where it's for her section, where you basically have to gather the trash cubes, go around these different areas, gather trash cubes, put them in the the trash chutes, and then build it up to where once you did collect all of them and then push the button, then you go about having her section where we know that the Mimic is wearing Dolly, but I liked her section overall, where you have to pull the levers to shoot out the trash cubes and then send her to molten steel. We thought that she was gone, but no, she pulled a William Afton. She always comes back.
Yeah, so she did. She bamboozled me so hard.
Let's go ahead and actually talk about Jackie's section.
Oh yes, Jackie.
I did like the chase overall. It was very intense. It was engaging, on point. I liked the music as well. The music in this game was very good.
That was great.
Now let's go ahead and move on to Big Top. I overall love Big Top's design. Just so cool with him holding the signs, playing all the different carnival games as well. Power went off, turned the power back on, just rinse, repeat, and then eventually you get the certain upgrade you need, and then moving on to his chase sequence / boss fight as well. His was crazy, with him just punching, bringing down the whole area and just punching through the roof, throwing the mannequins as well. It was just absolutely insane. My guy was just a menace.
I liked his section, especially like even after. Then you gotta go to the upper level, then look at the back of the mannequins, solve the puzzle.
Another thing I want to quick touch base on with you, Ambrose, is the atmosphere and the exploration. Like, what were your thoughts on that?
The atmosphere was actually, I wouldn't say scary, but definitely enough to be like, there's nothing behind me, right? So like that kind of atmosphere.
I love all the areas that Steel Studios created, like, you know, theater, the workshop area, underground portion. You find like that giant moon as well too. You know, that moon mascot costume being down there as well. That guy was super creepy, by the way. I went down there once, never went back down there ever again. Oh wait, we also can't forget White Tiger. How do you feel about his section, Ambrose?
I mentioned it briefly earlier, but I like the little maze parts like in between like the light up section.
That section was so scary because like you just had to keep an eye on him, but at the same time you had to make your way to the light super quickly, and you just hear like those stomping footsteps behind him, like, oh, he's getting closer, he's getting closer. Like, am I gonna make it? That thought was just like in the back of my mind, just constantly, dude. Just like trying to make my way to this light, then pull the lever to make it over here, grab the star, orphan, you know, baby thing, and then, you know, put it in the pedestal and just keep exploring around. So eventually, you know, I managed to make a way out of it. That section was very scary and creepy. What did you say is your favorite? If you had to pick a favorite, Ambrose, like out of like all the bosses.
I'm gonna say White Tiger.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with White Tiger. When you had to, you know, turn like the panel things with the tubes as well, and trying to get the divert the power and everything to, you know, to the other side as well. I thought that was a very creative way. I did like the levers as well. When it comes to like some of the, you know, the chase sequence as well too. Jackie's, I thought the lever, you know, in that moment where you just have to be quick with pulling that lever and then keep moving forward. I thought that was done pretty well.
Yeah, actually, what you just said leads on to the next category, what you didn't like. And I'm gonna say the party time Chica section, I hated with a passion.
Really? You hated that?
Yes, like most of the administrator's office I did not like, but it's mostly party time Chica because, oh dude, she would be everywhere. It's like, okay, when you're going on into the next room, right? Then it's like I see her, she's behind me, and then I go to the next room, she's in front of me now. You were just behind me, you just teleported, and then I get killed.
You're like, how? You're like, how?
No, exactly. And I'm like, it's like she could be across the room. I get in a locker, and then she just decides to check the locker for whatever apparent reason. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then you know what's worse? The cupcakes. I don't know if you knew this. The cupcakes can jump scare you.
Oh, they can. Yeah,
kill you.
I learned that. I remember, you know, I was going down the elevator and then making my way down to like the Abbott wing and everything, and I see Carl the Cupcake on roller skates. I'm like, oh my god, it's the Cupcake with roller skates. I'm like, you're not gonna hurt me or kill me anyway, are you? I got too close because, you know, curiosity got the best of me. And yeah, turns out the Cupcake can very much well jump scare you, which I'm like, okay, I will not be going nowhere near the Cupcakes ever again after that experience.
Exactly. A common trend that I see with Secret of the Mimic is that it's very overhated. We talked about it briefly beforehand, but now we can really go into it that when it came out, there were like a good split of people being like, Secret of the Mimic, and the other part being like,
I hate that game. No, that game is good, and here's why.
Being like, it's boring and repetitive. Well, guess what? It's a story game. It's there for the story. Because with all the mailboxes and stuff, you collect that, you read that, then you can connect pieces of bits of the story. This is the most lore we've gotten out of FNAF game, even more than Security Breach, even though Security Breach was a longer game. I can't hate on Secret of the Mimic. Like the gameplay, I won't say it's the best thing ever, because it's not. But it's not the worst thing ever. Like, in my opinion, look at FNAF World.
The gameplay isn't like as crazy as like Rune DLC or Help 1 or 2, right, with all the mini games, how fun it is. And the overall goal of this game was to tell about, you know, the Mimic's origin, how Edwin Murray made the Mimic, you know, why it was made, and how it holds like, you know, a deep dark secret. The fact that this game is like taking place before any other FNAF game, right, ultimately it's just, you know, shaping and changing it's changed the FNAF lore forever. The mailboxes, right, and the, you know, the environments and how we read them tell us the story of like the Mimic and Edwin and Fiona and all these important characters that help shape the story, how they helps give us understanding, a better grasp of the story, and how we can ultimately look back at other FNAF games that were made beforehand and how it answers a few questions, how it presents to us more questions as well.
The story that's being told is actually just got a lot more better for some people, and it got a lot more confusing for some people, because yes, we got a lot of answers for Security Breach and stuff, and for future of what the Mimic did, of like M2, M1, Fiona, which I think is the same one of those, but we'll get into that later, because that part I am confused a little bit on. The Mimic goes on to the past a little. Fall Fest, it be played into other games as well, and a lot of shocking discoveries have been made actually within Secret of the Mimic, like Roxy, Orville.
Monty is actually, there's actually a spring lock suit for Monty. There's a spring lock suit.
All these characters were made before the classic animatronics we all know and love, like Bonnie, Freddy, Foxy, and Chica. Like, Roxy was made before them, and part of the story can also be led on to like the collectibles, mini hints to like future that we already seen or stuff like in the past. We get the Fall Fest one, then we get the FNAF 4 telephone, we get the Roxy's hat, which I had no clue until you point out in your stream. I had no clue that was Roxy's hat.
literally
I
had to
didn't
point out
read
to
it.
me was like, Super, are you blind, bro? Are you blind? Like, read what this says on the hat. And I look at it, and I look at that, I'm like, oh my god, does that hat say ROTC? I was like, oh my god, like, ROTC is an old Edwin creation. So let's go and start off with the first ending, right? The most easiest one you can get, right? The clock out ending. You basically just give up the data diver to dispatch, quotation marks, you see what I'm doing here? I mean, you can't see it, but like,
Yeah,
you know.
well, I can't see, but they can see.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna pretend I can see, but
I'm gonna pretend. But yeah, you basically give it up to dispatch, and then you just go home, and then the real dispatch gets to contact with you. He tells you that you're fired, and the mimic is in the van with you, M2, and he basically just knocks you out. And or I wasn't even knocked. Well, not because you're still actually seeing. You're inside a Proto Freddy, but you're seeing everything around you. So like, would you say that we're dead, or like we're just still alive? Just kind
it's hard to say. It could be like what happened in Help Wanted when we got put into Freddy. We could be now one with the animatronic, or got spring locked even, or we could just be waking up inside the suit about to die. It's hard to say really, but either way, I think that ending we die.
100% we definitely died. Which then moves on to our second ending, being the canon ending to Secret of the Mimic, where we go about making our way to the underground portion of MCM, the underground facility, and we actually end up finding the Fazbear Project, where we get a full-on layout of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza with prototype versions of the original 4 animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Fozzie. And we actually end up seeing a few other Springlock animatronics there as well too, right? That being, we got Monty, Bub, not Bob, right? Bub?
I think, yeah, it was Bub.
It was Bub. And then we actually got to see prototype Spring Bonnie and prototype Fredbear, which was absolutely insane.
That was amazing.
To kind of continue moving forward, is you have to get all the 4 Springlot suits into the spotlight, which drains Dispatch, aka Fiona, which then we learned that once we make our way into the office, we learned that Fiona is inside of Metsis as well too, which is absolutely crazy. She goes about telling us, since you have the data diver, since you have the blueprints and everything, I'm gonna send you to Edwin's house, and we need to go about send out a signal, tell Edwin to come back and to fix M2, because as long as M2 stays the way he is, he will not stop, hunting you down. He won't stop hurting or killing people as well. So like, this madness has to end. We didn't progress further into the underground facility. We didn't go about into this cart ride with like a unfinished Mr. Helpful. Take the elevator, go about making way inside the house. Then we have to find all those different film reels, and we have to put them in a certain order in accordance to David's name. So like, each letter was color coded, and whatever color that reel was and whatever number it showed at the end of the reel, we had to put that number in that specific sequence. And once we put the correct code in, it gave us access to Edwin's private quarters, where it had like a bunch of more other blueprints. But we know that there is a program within another surveillance room called Cradle EXE. It was basically sort of a self-destructing, where basically all MCM in the house would just burn down and explode, and it would kind of trap the mimic inside of the fiery aftermath. But we know that the mimic does not get trapped in there. Despite us escaping, make our way to the elevator, and getting on out there and getting our van and everything, the mimic ain't letting us go, because we have the blueprints. The blueprints holds its weaknesses, and within those weaknesses, we can find a way to shut down the mimic. But of course, no, M2 does not let that happen. Despite us burning down MCM, and despite us getting out of there, it's still not a good turn for us. We're not out of there home free, because the mimic latches onto the van, breaks through the windshield, gets a hold of the steering wheel, crashes the van, then takes our data diver. He has the data diver, and he walks off. We succumb to the flames and die.
The third ending.
Yes, the third ending. Basically, that third ending is where we go about repairing M2 right there, where we had to complete the Moon EXE. In order to complete the Moon EXE, you had to get every single collectible within the game. Once you go through Moon EXE and you complete it, you get like another glitchy program that gets input into your data diver, and you use that to go about getting access to another room, to a room that has like a weird pad on it, like with lights and everything and whatnot. But you gotta find all these different like square audio tape recording type things. You gotta find like 6 of them in total. Put them in, then it opens up a vent, and once you crawl to the vent, you actually end up making your way into David's room. But eventually at this point, we do see that there's like a pedestal, and we have to place the white tiger doll on there. And then we see the mimic first, it's like he's kind of just him, but then he starts mimicking David, and then he goes back to being violent. The sheet on the wall that had like different animals on there, we had to push those buttons in a certain sequence based on like the animals that were being told in that specific order. Which you go about put in the correct sequence. M2 kind of like going back and forth between mimicking David and mimicking Edwin's anger and violence. Once that hatch opens up in this chest cavity, we then stick the data diver in, let the glitch program kick in, and then overall kill that violent behavior, and it just goes back to being normal again, and it just falls on just mimics David. After we repair M2 and then it becomes David, he has a tiger eye plushie in his hand, he heads to the bed, and he just shuts down, and we just take him with us to Fazbear Entertainment.
Yeah, we just imagine that's the canon, and we just kidnap him, and that ends up. Yeah, that's basically most of the game. But then that goes on to let's see, how replayable is it? It's replayable for the 2 endings, and that's about it.
Yep, that's basically it.
Because what I find so annoying, you can't go back, because once you beat the game, it restarts you completely. You can't manually save, right?
No, there's no manual saves. It's just auto save.
Yeah, that annoys me so much, because if I want to go back to a location, I gotta beat the game again. What you could do is you could just play the entire game like on one of the 3 save files and have it there. That's like the main flaw of the game, that it's not replayable.
Yeah, it's definitely. It was kind of falling by the format of Ruin, I would say. The Ruin DLC didn't have any save station. Yeah, chapter save, which I like like that a lot. I like the chapter save, and overall, for the sake of the Rune DLC, of how they were trying to tell the story and keep everything linear, I think that much is a deception. I like how they did that. However, I will say Security Breach had a better save station mechanic.
100%.
Because yes, you had all these bunch of save stations all around, but it was like, it was appreciated because there was a specific section of the game you wanted to go back to and, like explore there, find some more lore, or maybe, in this case for us YouTubers, right, gather footage and everything is right, not having to play the game.
On the release of Secret of the Mimic, of course, there's gonna be new characters and stuff like that. We get more detail on Edwin, we get introduced Fiona, more backstory on David, mostly backstory on the Mimic himself. I say we kick things off with this category by talking about his creator, Edwin Murray.
What we did learn about Edwin Murray is that his father used to own MCM, but then he passed away, and that ownership then passed down to his son. And we know that Edwin met Fiona within, I believe that's the same company that his father owned.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, they started to get to know each other more, right? And eventually, they dating, and then they got married, and they had David as well. Edwin Murray worked with a lot of other companies out there, and the most notable worthy company he worked with, Fazbear Entertainment. Edwin's character, I really do like him a lot. I think there was some audio tapes where he wasn't exactly really emotional or really strong. I think it was that one tape where when he found out that his wife died.
He was emotional about that.
He's totally emotional. I'm like, do you feel remorse or feel sad about your wife passing away? He's like, oh man, what am I going to know?
Oh no, how could that happen?
His wife died at Fall Fest. His son gets hit by the van. William Afton is being the puppeteer, making these changes to orders and putting so much stress on top of Edwin, and where it's he just loses it. He snaps. He takes all the anger and violence and frustration out of the Mimic because it was programmed to mimic things in front of it. When it mimicked Edwin's violence and behavior and everything, then we all know what happens next. We know that Fiona worked at the company within MCM. They met, they got married, and had David. In Fiona's sense in her character and everything, how she was the one that was trying to keep balance within the family, but also she, cared a lot about David as well too, especially with his birthday parties and being there for him. We know when it came to Edwin was just locked in his room and just focused on the work. I'm like, my guy, be a father, bro. Stop neglecting, be a father to your son, dude. I like Fiona's character a lot though, because you get some insight of how Edwin acted, how he did things, how he kind of ran the company as well too. Dude learned that the Mimic originally was made to mimic Fiona. After Fiona died, that Edwin made the Mimic, and that the Mimic was made to again be a babysitter, a new friend to David. Also was meant to mimic Fiona, and it did it perfectly. But of course, after David does die from the car crash or the event and everything, M1, because we learned that also that M1 and M2 programs were in the same endoskeleton. It's just that the Mimic started off as just M1 mimicking Fiona, but M1 urged Edwin to make another Mimic, right, to create M2 to mimic his son David's. This way the whole family can be together. But Edwin is no, I'm not gonna do that. That's it may be mimicking, but that ain't my kid. And it's what was I thinking, having a robot raise my kid? You're not real and everything. And just out of the anger and sense, he shuts down M1 and takes M1, aka Fiona, and puts her inside a Metsis, which leaves an empty endoskeleton. But we know that Edwin does make the M2 programming, puts it inside of the endoskeleton, right, hence M2, and M2 was then made to mimic David. No matter how much it mimicked David, it's not David. After the anger and the grief and violence and the loss that he's been dealt through, after the things that Fazbear Entertainment has done to him and his company, bro just had enough and snapped and just beat up the Mimic. The Mimic mimicked his anger and violence, and then went about killing all the Fazbear employees and workers that came into MCM to get the blueprints, stuffed them in the mascot costumes, and we know how the story goes from there.
If I got it correct, because you remember the tapes likely more than I do, Edwin made the schematics and stuff and created some prototypes and stuff, but then Fazbear Entertainment ended up stealing these designs, and William and Henry ended up leaving him to rot.
So originally how that played out was that Edwin did a lot of work with Fazbear Entertainment. Fazbear Entertainment contracted with Edwin to create the layout, create the prototypes, versions of the original four animatronics, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Fozzie, also, Spring, Bonnie, and Fredbear. However, once Edwin was getting close to the final designs and doing other things here and there, and showed William and Henry, they just changed their minds and told him to start over from scratch and everything. And the new designs that they gave them, he described them as being very creepy looking as well too, which kind of brought out some theories that both the original four and Withers are separate in a sense, because the fact that he described them as creepy, but then these other ones look great and friendly, everything. That's just other theories that I heard from people. I'm not saying that's my theory, but that's just what I kind of been hearing from out there. Because Edwin never ended up finishing the project, because again, bro lost his wife, he lost his son, he beat up the Mimic, he abandoned MCM, he came back, he was gonna fix M2, but then M2 caused a whole explosion to happen in his house and everything, and Edwin got trapped underneath some rubble and most likely died, right? And the Mimic stayed within MCM and just made sure that nobody could get their hands on his blueprints and kill anybody that entered within MCM.
After everything that happened, the death and stuff, and then the connection, he became broken. When you lose your son and wife, then you're going through emotional stress and trauma. So he tried to build something to help him out, but then he realized it's kind of more depressing. And then beat that up. The people, his friends that he thought he could trust, stabbed him in the back and he's enraged.
So bro has reason to be angry and everything.
Yeah, he's a good character, actually.
Yeah, he's a really good character.
People are trying to connect the dots to the current story because now it's not just the future we have to add on to. Now we have to go back in the past and connect the dots to that storyline as well and make things make sense. Because originally we thought things first started at Fredbear's family diner, but no, we were completely wrong about that. Things started back at the manor.
First we have Secret of Mimic, right? Take place 1979. Then we have Fredbear's family diner, which is 1983. Then FNAF 2 will be 1987. FNAF 1 will be, as you said, around like 1993, I believe. I could be wrong about the year, but then after that would be Sister Location. And then we got FNAF 3 being Fast for Frights. And then we have Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. And, you know, the rest goes on and on from there. But that's kind of like sort of connecting it right there for those games. It says Arnold burned down NCM. And he has the data diary, he's got the blueprints and everything. But we know that the Mimic takes it back and he walks off and makes you wondering, you know, where the heck is the Mimic going to go next, you know? We know that at some point in time after Secret of Mimic that he does eventually falls into the hand of Fazbear Entertainment and he gets into the Mega Pizza Plex's construction site where he goes about, you know, disassembling, you know, endoskeleton parts, you know, animatronic parts and endoskeletons. Gets violent programming, gets back in and starts killing all the workers, and the workers then steal off, you know, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. So now the Mimic is just stuck in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, the FNAF 6 location, while the Mega Pizza Plex is, you know, still being, you know, constructed and eventually does end up getting completed.
The next category is labeled, did we learn a secret of the Mimic? Yeah, we learned a secret of the Mimic, but let's go on down. Let's talk about that secret a little bit. It was crazy. 2 mimics? Like,
I would say not like 2 mimics, but like a mimic with 2 programmings.
You know, that's better wording. That's better wording, yeah.
I think that was the secret all along. I think the secret is that the Mimic was originally made to mimic David, but it was actually originally made to mimic Fiona. But then after David died and Fiona, M1, right, encouraged to create another Mimic. Instead of just like kind of making another one, he just took Fiona out of the Mimic endoskeleton, put her inside of Metzis, and then afterwards put the M2 programming inside of the Mimic endoskeleton, you know, to mimic David. Hence, you got M2 right there. So I think that's just the whole sense of there. That's the Mimic secret. Like the Mimic was originally made to mimic Fiona, but this endoskeleton once had this programming, but then they took it out, and then now we have this program. I think that was the secret. How do you feel about that? What do you think?
I think it's pretty good.
So I guess that leaves us to our last segment, predictions. Predictions of the future of Five Nights at Freddy's. So I'll start off with you, Ambrose. What are your sort of predictions?
Go off what we got. I think the next game will be a sequel, continuing off of Security Breach and Ruin. I know a lot of people think Secret of Mimic's gonna get a DLC, but I personally don't think so. Now I'm coming to a hope that does not bite me in the butt later when it gets announced as a DLC for the game. But I don't think there will be a DLC. I think we're just gonna continue off in Ruin as Cassie, and Rox is gonna be our ally. Now, where the story is gonna go, I assume since after you get a sequel game, then a prequel, then the next sequel will contain that character again. So I do think we will see Mimic again, or maybe even Fiona in a different sense.
My prediction's kind of basically the same thing as yours, because at first I was thinking, oh, surely we could get a DLC for Secret of Mimic, right? But it's like, what else is there to tell at MCM, you know? Like
exactly.
The story's told, that like what we learned there is like, we went there, we learned all that we need to learn there, and then we left and we're done. So it makes sense for the next game to be like a sequel, as you said, right? Where it could be Ruin 2. But I know some people would love to see like a Fall Fest game as well too, which I think that'd be pretty cool. There's a Fall Fest in 1970 and there's a Fall Fest in 1983. We know after 83, that's it. There's no more Fall Fest. If we do end up both being wrong, then we're wrong. You know, we get a DLC. But it is what it is, man. You know, I mean, if we get the DLC, then I'm not complaining. You know, I would love to get a DLC. But if not, we just get like a full-on game. I'm also satisfied with that as well too. I believe this brings us to the end of this episode of IndieCast right here. So, is there anything else on your mind you kind of want to like quickly go over, or like do you think was there anything else that we missed?
I think that's kind of a wrap. All I gotta say is, if you haven't already, subscribe.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing?
Like, yeah, what are y'all doing? If y'all guys, you know, made it here this far to the end of like, you know, an IndieCast right here, episode 3, and you guys enjoyed what you see here, hey, go ahead and leave a like down below, hit that subscribe button, turn on all notifications as well too. And also we have 2 more other episodes of IndieCast that we've done beforehand as well. Our first episode was on Indigo Park. Our second episode was on Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. So if you guys are interested in those games right there, check out those episodes, which of course we'll be sure to pop them up here at the end of this video for you guys, of course.
And if y'all got any other suggestions for maybe games you want to see on IndieCast, then go ahead, leave a comment below. We do indie games, by the way, as by the name of the cast.
That's by the name of our podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 3 of IndieCast. We absolutely cannot wait to see you guys back at again in episode 4 of IndieCast. But I've been Super Rocker.
And I've been Luke Ambrose.
And as always, stay safe, positive, be there for another, and remember,
the grind never stops.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, y'all.